Welcome back to our channel, Coin History Vault. These USA 1-dime coins make people rich. Let's find out why. Don't miss out one of these. Who know a sigil coin make you rich? Let's start this. Coin 1. Today, we slow down and travel back to a time when a single dime quietly became one of the greatest legends in American coin history. A coin so rare that most collectors only see it in books, auction catalogs, or behind museum glass. This is the story of the United States of America rare Barber 1-dime dated 1894, a coin that proves size has nothing to do with importance. When this dime was struck, it was never meant to become famous. It carried the familiar Barber design, Liberty wearing a simple cap, surrounded by clean lettering, with an eagle on the reverse that symbolized strength and balance. At first glance, it looks similar to other Barber dimes of the era. But this single year and mint combination changed everything. The mystery begins at the San Francisco Mint. Records show that only a very small number of these dimes were produced, far fewer than any normal circulation coin. Even at the time, this was unusual. No official explanation was clearly recorded, which opened the door to speculation that continues to this day. Some believe the coins were struck to settle accounting totals. Others believe they were created for special purposes and never intended for public use. What makes collectors lean closer when this coin is mentioned is not just the low mintage, but how few survived. Over time, coins are lost, melted, spent, or damaged. But with the 1894 Barber dime, nearly all vanished before anyone realized their importance. Only a tiny handful are confirmed today, each one carefully tracked and documented. Collectors study this dime with intense focus. The strike quality, the sharpness of Liberty's profile, and the clarity of the date all matter. Because so few examples exist, even small imperfections or unusual features attract attention. Weak strikes, surface irregularities, or die-related characteristics are closely examined. While not error coins in the traditional sense, these subtle differences help experts identify authenticity and history. For coin lovers, this dime represents the ultimate challenge. It is not something you casually buy. It is something you wait years to even see. The excitement comes from knowing that a simple silver dime carries stories of mint secrets, lost examples, and legendary collectors who searched their entire lives for one opportunity. This coin teaches an important lesson to every collector watching. Rarity is not always about age or beauty. Sometimes rarity comes from circumstance, mystery, and survival. The 1894 Barber dime is proof that a coin does not need gold to be priceless. It needs history. As you listen, imagine the journey of this dime. From a mint press in the 19th century, to decades of silence, to sudden fame that shook the numismatic world. Each surviving example has its own personality, its own path, and its own story that will never be repeated. Now listen carefully to this final part. The real market price of an authentic 1894 Barber 1-dime in circulated condition is valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. In higher condition, confirmed auction sales have reached values exceeding $1 million, making it one of the most valuable dimes ever sold in United States history. Coin 2. We turn our attention to a silver dime that many people overlook, yet collectors know can hide surprising value when the right details appear. This is the story of the United States of America Mercury 1-dime dated 1937. A coin that looks common at first glance, but under careful examination, can reveal rare traits that excite serious collectors. The Mercury dime, officially known as the Winged Liberty Head dime, was designed by Adolph A. Weinman. It is often mistaken for the Roman god Mercury, but the image actually represents Liberty wearing a winged cap, symbolizing freedom of thought. This design quickly became one of the most loved in American coin history, and by 1937, it was already deeply embedded in everyday circulation. Millions of 1937 Mercury dimes were struck across different mints, and most were used heavily in daily commerce. Because of this, high-quality survivors are far less common than people expect. Many were worn down, damaged, or melted for silver over the decades. This is where collector interest begins to rise. What truly makes the 1937 Mercury dime special is not the date alone, but the hidden details that some examples carry. Collectors pay very close attention to strike quality, mint marks, and surface characteristics. Weak strikes, especially on the horizontal bands across the fasces on the reverse, play a huge role in desirability. A dime with fully defined bands shows exceptional striking pressure and craftsmanship, making it far more valuable than an average piece. Errors also add excitement to this date. Some 1937 Mercury dimes show doubled features in the lettering or date, caused by die misalignment during minting. Others were struck off-center, clipped, or with unusual planchet flaws. These mistakes were never meant to leave the mint, yet a few escaped into circulation, turning ordinary dimes into collector treasures. Condition matters more than most people realize. Because these dimes were widely used, finding one with sharp details, clean surfaces, and strong eye appeal is increasingly difficult. Collectors carefully examine Liberty's facial features, the wings on the cap, and the torch on the reverse. Every small detail tells a story of how the coin was struck and how it survived through time. For coin lovers, the 1937 Mercury dime represents a lesson in patience and knowledge. It reminds collectors that rarity is not always obvious. Sometimes it hides in quality, in errors, or in details that only trained eyes can detect. That is why many experienced collectors still search rolls, old collections, and inherited coin boxes with hope and excitement. This coin also carries emotional value. It connects us to an era just before major global change, a time when silver dimes passed from hand to hand without anyone imagining they would one day be studied so closely. Every surviving example is a small piece of American history. Now listen carefully to this final part. The real market price of a standard 1937 Mercury 1 dime in worn condition is valued at only a few dollars. However, examples with full band details or confirmed mint errors can reach values in the hundreds of dollars. In exceptional high-grade condition, auction prices have climbed into the thousands of dollars, depending on rarity, eye appeal, and demand. Coin 3. We focus on a silver dime that quietly marked the end of an era in American coin history. A coin that many people have held, spent, or ignored, yet collectors know it deserves careful attention. This is the story of the United States of America Mercury 1 dime dated 1945, a coin that represents both history and hidden potential. 1945 was a powerful year. It marked the end of World War II, a turning point that reshaped the world. During this time, Mercury dimes were still part of everyday life, passing through countless hands as Americans moved forward into a new chapter. This dime carries that moment in time, struck in silver during a year filled with emotion, relief, and transition. The Mercury dime design, created by Adolph A. Weinman, features Liberty wearing a winged cap, symbolizing freedom of thought. By 1945, the design was nearing the end of its production, making this year especially meaningful to collectors. Just 1 year later, the Mercury dime would be replaced, turning the 1945 issue into one of the final expressions of this beloved design. Millions of 1945 Mercury dimes were minted, yet most were heavily used. Silver coins were essential for daily transactions, and few people saved them in high condition. Over time, many were worn down, damaged, or melted for their silver content. As a result, well-preserved examples are far scarcer than their original mintage numbers suggest. Collectors carefully examine this dime for specific details that increase desirability. Strike quality plays a major role, especially on the reverse where the fasces and horizontal bands appear. Dimes with strong, fully separated bands are far more sought after, as they indicate exceptional striking pressure. Weakly struck examples are common, making strong strikes stand out immediately. Errors add another layer of fascination. Some 1945 Mercury dimes show doubled lettering, minor die cracks, or off-center strikes. These minting mistakes were accidental, yet they transform ordinary coins into rare collectibles. Each error tells a story of a moment when the minting process went slightly wrong, creating a unique piece of history. Condition remains one of the most important factors. Collectors study Liberty's facial features, the sharpness of the winged cap, and the clarity of the date. Coins with clean surfaces, strong detail, and pleasing eye appeal are increasingly difficult to find, especially from a year when circulation was heavy. For coin lovers, the 1945 Mercury dime is a reminder that history often hides in plain sight. It shows that even common-looking coins can become special through preservation, quality, and unique characteristics. Many collectors continue to search old collections and inherited coin boxes, hoping to discover a standout example from this historic year. This dime also holds emotional value. It connects us to a generation that experienced hardship and victory, and it represents the final chapter of one of America's most admired coin designs. Every surviving Mercury dime from 1945 carries both silver and memory. Now listen carefully to this final part. The real market price of a worn 1945 Mercury 1 dime is generally valued at only a few dollars. Examples with strong strike details, especially full band features, can reach values in the hundreds of dollars. In exceptional high-grade condition, confirmed auction prices have climbed into the thousands of dollars, depending on quality, rarity, and collector demand. Coin 4. We focus on a dime that many people have seen, spent, or even ignored, yet collectors know it can hide surprises when examined closely. This is the story of the United States of America Roosevelt 1 dime dated 1991 with the Philadelphia Mint mark. A modern-era coin that proves rarity is not always about age, but about details, errors, and condition. The Roosevelt dime was introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt. By 1991, this design had already become a familiar part of daily American life. Millions of dimes were produced every year, and most people never imagined that any coin from this era could become collectible. Yet, the world of coin collecting often rewards patience and sharp observation. The 1991 Philadelphia dime was struck during a time of high-speed minting. Coins were produced quickly to meet circulation demand, and when speed increases, small mistakes can happen. These mistakes are where collector interest begins. While most examples are common, a small number carry unusual characteristics that separate them from the rest. Collectors pay close attention to the details on Roosevelt's portrait. The clarity of the eye, the sharpness of the lettering, and the strength of the torch on the reverse all matter. Coins struck with strong detail and clean surfaces are much harder to find than worn examples. Many dimes from this year were heavily circulated, scratched, or damaged shortly after release. Errors are the true excitement for collectors of this date. Some 1991 Philadelphia dimes show doubled lettering or numbers, caused by die alignment issues during the minting process. Others may display off-center strikes, broad strikes where the rim is missing, or planchet defects that give the coin an unusual shape or texture. These errors were never intended to leave the mint, yet a few escaped into circulation. Another factor that increases interest is condition rarity. While millions were made, very few survived in exceptionally high grade. Coins that appear untouched, with original luster and sharp details, become much more desirable to collectors. These pieces often come from rolls that were saved and forgotten for decades. For coin lovers, this dime teaches an important lesson. Not every valuable coin looks old or rare at first glance. Knowledge turns ordinary coins into potential discoveries. That is why experienced collectors still check pocket change, old jars, and inherited collections. The thrill comes from knowing that something special can hide in plain sight. This coin also represents a changing era. By 1991, silver was no longer used in circulating dimes, making this coin a symbol of modern American currency. Even so, it carries history through its design, production, and the millions of hands it passed through. If you are a collector listening closely, remember this. Study mint marks, learn error types, and always examine condition carefully. Coins like this reward attention, not luck. Now listen very carefully to this final part. The real market price of a standard circulated 1991 Philadelphia Roosevelt 1 dime is generally valued at face value. However, examples with confirmed mint errors can be worth tens to hundreds of dollars. In exceptional high-grade condition, verified auction results have reached values in the hundreds of dollars, depending on quality, rarity, and collector demand. Coin 5. We take a closer look at a dime that almost everyone has seen, yet very few truly understand. A coin that blends modern history with hidden collector potential. This is the story of the United States of America Roosevelt one dime dated 1980 from the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, it looks ordinary, but for those who listen carefully, this coin has much more to say. By 1980, the Roosevelt dime had already been part of American daily life for more than 3 decades. Introduced to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the design became a symbol of stability and continuity. Millions of these dimes were produced every year, and most were immediately pushed into circulation, where they were spent, stacked, scratched, and forgotten. What makes the 1980 Philadelphia dime interesting is not how rare it appears, but how rarely it survives in special form. During this period, the U.S. Mint was producing coins at extremely high speed. Machines ran non-stop, and quality control focused more on quantity than perfection. When speed increases, small imperfections become more common, and that is where collector interest begins. Collectors examine this coin very closely. The sharpness of Roosevelt's portrait, the clarity of the lettering, and the strength of the torch on the reverse are all important. Many 1980 dimes show weak strikes, flat details, or heavy wear. Finding one with strong definition and clean surfaces is much harder than people expect. Errors play a major role in elevating this coin beyond face value. Some 1980 Philadelphia dimes display doubled letters or numbers, especially noticeable in the date or inscriptions. Others were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. Broad strikes, where the coin lacks a proper rim, also attract attention. In some cases, planchet defects created unusual textures or shapes, turning an everyday dime into a collector conversation piece. Condition rarity is another key factor. Because these coins were heavily circulated, very few remain in pristine condition. Coins that still show original mint luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks stand out immediately. These high-quality survivors often come from rolls that were saved and forgotten, making their discovery even more exciting. For coin lovers, the 1980 Roosevelt dime delivers an important message. Valuable coins are not always old, silver, or gold. Sometimes value comes from knowledge, patience, and the ability to notice small details that others ignore. This is why experienced collectors still check pocket change, coin jars, and inherited collections with care. This dime also reflects a changing era in American coinage. By 1980, dimes were no longer made of silver, marking a clear divide between classic and modern coinage. Even so, this coin still carries history through its design, its production, and the millions of moments it witnessed while passing from hand to hand. If you are listening closely as a collector, remember this lesson. Learn how coins are made, study common errors, and never assume a coin has no value just because it looks ordinary. Sometimes, the most unexpected discoveries come from the most familiar places. Now listen very carefully to this final part. The real market price of a standard circulated 1980 Philadelphia Roosevelt one dime is generally equal to face value. However, examples with confirmed mint errors can be worth tens to hundreds of dollars. In exceptional high-grade condition, verified auction results have reached values in the hundreds of dollars, depending on condition, rarity, and collector demand.